What is going on, guys? Nathan here, back again with another video commentary, and today I would like to talk about Overwatch. And Overwatch has been my absolute favorite game within the past few weeks, and I don't mean to talk about the game in such a way where I'm trying to rub it into the people who haven't gotten into the beta. In fact, I myself have not gotten into the beta, and one of my friends, though, has, and he has been letting me use his account because he was not a fan of Overwatch. So a big shout out and thank you to my friend Justin, who has been allowing me to use his account to play this game. But today I would like to talk about my favorite hero within Overwatch, which is, by a landslide, Zenyatta. Now, this is sort of interesting in hindsight because when I first started Overwatch, Zenyatta was my least favorite hero. When starting out, I just didn't have the knowledge and the skill set needed for positioning Zenyatta in such a way where he doesn't die instantly, because the number one downside to Zenyatta is that he is super squishy. Only 150 health, the least in the entire game, tied with Tracer. And Zenyatta can pretty much die if the enemy sneezes on you in the right way. So starting out, I would sort of, stand in corridors that I didn't know at the time might be a good place for spam, and I would just die over and over and over again, and I couldn't figure out how to play him. So I sort of took a break from him, and I came back after a long time period, picked him up again, and I just cannot stop playing him because I love him so much. Now, the two reasons why I love him so much have to deal with Zenyatta's versatility and the decision making that is required to play his kit well. Now, let me talk about his versatility for a little bit. Zenyatta is the healer within Overwatch that also attempts to deal damage. And not only is this unique and makes him a good hero, but for me, it is what makes him fun. Because on one hand, I can know that I'm a real asset to my team with my healing abilities and my focusing abilities with my Orb of Discord. But I also get the typical FPS experience of trying to kill enemies by using a primary fire. So this is sort of in contrast to a healer like Mercy, who is equally as good as Zenyatta, but she's not as fun to me simply because all she does, all her gameplay loop consists of, is holding left click and maybe holding right click to heal teammates and boost their damage. With Zenyatta, I at least get the experience of also trying to shoot enemies, even though I might not deal as much damage as the Genji on my team, for example. His damage dealing role and his healing role is what makes him fun. Now, that also is what makes him really good. Zenyatta's only weakness is his lack of health. I think he really fills a damage role really well, and he fills a healing role really well. So he has to have a downside somewhere, and that downside comes in the form of his squishiness. Now, if you learn to play him right and position him in such a way where you're always skirting the edges of a firefight, then Zenyatta's squishiness is not that big of a deal, especially because he regens most of his health. I believe actually all of his health, because his actual health, other than his shields, is about 50, and I think that regens in addition to his shields, but I'm not entirely sure. But his squishiness regens, so at least you have that working for you as compared to somebody like Tracer, who is all health and no shields, and she needs health packs to sustain herself. I also really appreciate Zenyatta's decision making. Zenyatta's kit revolves around making crucial decisions such as who to heal, when to heal, who to mark with your Orb of Discord, and how to position yourself, when you should ult, and how you should ult. And I'll sort of explain that because Zenyatta's ultimate is unique and it doesn't really clash well with his kit, and I'll sort of explain that further, but I'll just continue moving on in the meantime. So the most important aspect of Zenyatta, in my opinion, is his E. His E, which is the Orb of Discord, is a damage dealing element in itself. Even though it doesn't deal damage, it will essentially mark an enemy for death because they will lose in any 1v1, any evenly matched 1v1, just because they're taking more damage. But what his Orb of Discord does is it means that you control the focus for your team by using your Orb of Discord, because your teammates will naturally focus a target that is marked with the Orb of Discord because they know that they can easily get a kill there. Even if they die in the process, they can trade 1-for-1. So this is another sort of tie-in with how decision making is important for Zenyatta, because it is crucial to decide who gets marked with the Orb of Discord and when. And typically I like to keep my Orb of Discord on damage dealers, primarily such as Junkrat, and Pharah is one of the more annoying ones because she can absolutely wreck you with, I think it's 1 direct hit rocket or maybe 2 even splash damage rockets. So she's a good one to take out of the air. In addition to primarily Mercy for healers. Healers being marked with the Orb of Discord is really difficult to make a judgment call on because a lot of healers tend to stray on the outskirts of a fight and they're typically not taking that much damage in the first place. So for example, a Lucio might be a really good focus target, but you might want to question whether you should keep your Orb of Discord on a Lucio, which simply because he has so much sustain. And his kit is not one where he really wants to be in the center of I mean, I suppose he does want to be in the center of things, but typically as a Lucio, you're really mobile and can escape a lot of situations in which other classes may not. So it's that sort of judgment call that you might have to make, whether, should I mark this Lucio? Are my teammates nearby where they can see that he's marked and they can follow up? And also there's an aspect of communication. If you want to communicate to your teammates that, hey, focus the Lucio on point, he's being marked with an Orb of Discord, then your teammates can follow up with that as well. So overall, there's a lot of higher level thinking that goes on with Zenyatta, even though all his Orb of Discord really comes down to is the push of a button, which I really appreciate about the character. And also in addition, I like to mark really disruptive tanks, such as Winston, for example. Reinhardt is a good mark target if he's really posing as a massive barrier to your team, but typically Reinhardt will keep his shield up for the majority of the time, so he can't actually take damage if he's just blocking it all with his shield. But the disruptive tanks such as Winston, or if a diva is really in your face, she's a good mark target as well. With your Orb of Harmony, I'd typically like to keep that on the damage dealers on the team that don't have any sustain. So again, Junkrat is a good target, either for your Orb of Discord or for your Orb of Harmony. Junkrat is just a damage dealer that you want to keep around. I also typically like to mark a Genji or Tracers as well. Personally, if I'm a Tracer, I really appreciate a Zenyatta who keeps an Orb of Harmony on me, simply because Tracer is so squishy and she has no regenning abilities other than her E, which it has a cooldown of 20 seconds or so, which is not even a true heal. It's really situational. So I also like to mark tanks with my Orb of Harmony that take a lot of damage, such as Winston and Diva. I typically only mark, tanks like Reinhardt if they're really low, but again, Reinhardt is going to be blocking a lot of damage. So here again, you have decision making, because you are deciding who to mark and especially when to mark, because you might have to make a decision where, should I mark a teammate who is really low in the middle of combat but who has a lot of sustain? For example, a Mei heading into the front line, she can typically sustain herself because her kit has a lot of utility. Or for example, let's say that Mei is taking a lot of damage and you don't know if you should mark her because you also might have your Orb of Harmony already on a valuable teammate to keep around, such as, let's say, you have a Pharah that is above the enemy raining down rockets. Well, you have to make the decision, is she taking a lot of fire? Can I afford to take the Orb of Harmony off of her? When is the next chance that I'm going to get to mark her so I can keep her around? So you have to sort of, once again, make higher level decisions as to how you want to control the tide of the battle that is taking place. And I would also like to talk about Zenyatta's ultimate. Now, his ultimate is very awkward with how Zenyatta's kit is set up, because for the majority of the time, you're going to be working the outskirts of a battlefield right at the, end of your range, so to speak, so that you aren't taking a lot of damage and you can survive. His ultimate requires you to be really up close and with the rest of your team, so using your ultimate is actually a little bit difficult because you have to walk up to the front lines of the battle. You have to consciously make a decision to ult. Are your teammates low enough to warrant an ult? Do you think they can sustain through whatever damage they're taking? So that decision making plus walking up to your team can be a little bit difficult, even though it sounds really simple, because they might be taking a lot of damage. And if you get bunched up with your team, for example, you're with the Winstons and the Divas on the front lines, then one of their Pharahs might see you and she might just ultimate because you're all bunched together. So it's pretty difficult to use that way. But the ultimate can be an absolute lifesaver, and the fact that you are invulnerable makes it so valuable. Because if anything, it can serve as a get out of jail free card. And other than walking up to your team to use your ultimate, you also might have to figure out how to get out safely. Now, best case scenario, you ultimate, your team is fully healed up, they win the team fight, and all of the enemies are dead, and you can sort of back out safely after using your ultimate. But sometimes, there's a lot of combat still going on, so you are once again basically stuck out in the middle of the front line once your ultimate is done, so you have to figure out how to get out of there and survive. And the last thing that I would like to talk about with regards to Zenyatta is his actual primary and alt fire attack. And I'm purposely talking about this last because while Zenyatta is good at dealing damage, his abilities are much more important to your team than his primary fire. Zenyatta is a pseudo sniper / spammer. So as a result of that, you have the potential to deal a lot of damage, but a lot of the time I find myself sort of spamming onto the point and trying to deal damage. Now that's just me, I guess. I suppose that could be an argument of your skill cap and whatnot. But my primary fire is less important than who I'm marking with my Orb of Discord, for example. My alt fire as Zenyatta will give me some additional utility and actual overall DPS. For example, if you're turning a corner, you can charge up your alt fire and see if you can lead into a possible 1v1 with that nice burst of damage. But the majority of the time, that's probably not going to do a whole lot. Just because you are blind firing around a corner, essentially. But that alt fire is definitely valuable, especially for taking out Junkrat ultimates and whatnot. That Rip Tire will absolutely destroy you so fast. Yeah, I really enjoy the aspect of Zenyatta that just gets to sort of spam around a corner. There is some decision making that comes with how he should be spamming and stuff. It's really basic stuff though. And again, the majority of what you're going to be doing is focusing on who your Orb of Harmony target should be on, who your Orb of Discard targets are on, charging up your ultimate. It is notable that, or it is worth noting rather, that I believe Zenyatta's ultimate charges with damage dealt and heals that are done essentially. So you will want to try to deal as much damage as possible. Wow, that's really obvious. Thank you for telling me that, Nathan. No, but it's actually really important to spam really smartly so that you can A, deal damage, and B, build your ultimate, because your ultimate again, is that get out of jail free card and possibly life saving ultimate for your team. So that's all I have on Zenyatta for today. Again, he's just my absolute favorite hero within this game, and he's really, really well. Okay, so like I said, he's versatile, and that also comes with the added benefit of like a lot of people will. This is best explained by example. So a lot of people will say that depending on the map and what section of the map you might be on, that you should switch heroes according to how far you've progressed into the map, because certain, like for example, King of the Hill is not as friendly to Zenyatta as just a regular control point map is, because Zenyatta typically takes a lot more spam with King of the Hill. But because of his versatility, he might actually be. You're more likely to be able to use him in all sections of all maps rather than somebody like a Winston, for example. Winston is really good when you really need to collapse on the enemy. Really useful in King of the Hill just because he can sort of just keep making that jump onto point and spamming people out and disrupting the opponent. Whereas, if you switch off to a more long-range map, then that Winston player might switch to Hanzo, for example. Now, with Zenyatta, he's really useful in that he can sort of play any section of any map just because he is so versatile. He's very long-ranged, that's true, but if you can figure out a way to really excel in close corridors, not really close quarters, I guess pretty much if you're in close quarters in King of the Hill, then that means that you should be at medium range. You should never be in true close quarters because you will get destroyed. So anyway, that was my sort of comment for switching off from Zenyatta 2, which is worth noting because Overwatch is very much a game where you should be switching heroes according to how you are progressing through the map. And that was one of the founding design decisions that the Overwatch team made. And the reason why heroes aren't locked behind paywalls is because they want people to be switching to heroes according to the map. And in order to have a really, really flexible team, everybody needs access to all heroes. So that's really important. But anyway, that's pretty much what I have on Zenyatta for today. Thank you all for watching, and feel free to leave a rating on the video if you did enjoy it, and feel free to subscribe if you enjoy content like this, because I will be bringing many more Overwatch commentaries in the future. So once again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you later.